Bonjour à tous. Thank you very much for watching and joining us today. I am your host. I'm Christophe Langlois. I'm the Global FinTech and Developer Ecosystem Marketing Lead at Finastra. And we're welcoming you for another live meetups as part of our Hack to the Future Hackathon series. So at the moment, we're conducting a global hackathon. We've got close to 4,000 participants from more than 75 countries. You can still enter and submit an application. You've got until the 20th of December. And our goal is to together to help to redefine finance for good. So please check us out online and in the links below. We also have a strategic goal with the fusionfabric.cloud platform to become the top, most trusted platform in the world to foster open innovation from banks and drive collaboration between banks and fintechs. And today, we've got a unique opportunity to discuss the topic of collaboration between banks and fintech, focusing on RegTech, which is one of the most fascinating topics within the current fintech ecosystem. And we've got an excellent panelist lineup, and I'm very excited to introduce you to the few participants today. So first of all, we've got Antoine Risk, the CEO of Flaminem. So Flaminem is a KYC due diligence digitization platform. It's designed by business users for business users. And they recently won the retail banking Scaleup competition from Accenture and Efma, and they're part of the Financial NewTech Watchlist 2020. They'll tell you more in a minute. We also have Julien Bellassen, who is the Digital Compliance Officer of BPI France. So BPI France is the bank for entrepreneurs. And by the way, a friend of mine is one of your clients, Julien. They do many things actually to support the entrepreneurs. They coach them. They even organize crazy events. That's what you see on your website. And last but not least, we've got Elias Ganem, the Global Head of Market Intelligence at Capgemini. So we enjoy a great relationship and collaboration between Finastra, Capgemini, and the Efma. We participate to a number of activities, including live meetups like this one. We also took part to their inaugural Financial NewTech Challenge in 2020. My colleague Sherin was one of the juries, I believe. And they also work on and deliver on regular basis great pieces of insights and reports like the World FinTech Report. And their goal is to help scaling up FinTech innovation with their Scaleup certification program. So now I will leave the mic to Elias. So Elias, now the stage is yours. If you want to start, please.
Christophe, thank you very much. And thank you, Finastra, for welcoming us. And thank you, everybody, for joining us today. What I will be sharing with you today is a summary of the World Retail Banking Report that we launched earlier this year. And as a background, as Christophe mentioned, I am in charge of the market intelligence of Capgemini for the financial services sector. And our main objective is to understand what is happening outside in the market and put it in a structured manner through the report. And today we're going to share with you the retail banking report. To put that into perspective, this retail banking report today, we are at the 17th edition of the report. And to make it very simple, we gave it a very straightforward title. How can we be winning if we don't have a sustainable platform? So winning with a sustainable platform is the way forward. To summarize the report in terms of acting, it's the first message is traditional banking model is fragile. The whole legacy mindset, the poor data management are the main two inhibitors to an OpenX, and we'll come back a lot about this OpenX position. So if we have this problem, how to move forward? Platformification is the catalyst for the bank's revival. Its low cost and its effective innovation will make it critical into this current time that we live. And to make that work, it's important to have an enabling core evolved from a product set, also evolved from going and engaging with their provider because they have assets, because they have branches, because they have hundreds of years, to working with providers that know them well. And how do they know the customer? Where the whole mindset is evolving to become a strengths-based OpenX role model. And to make that happen, the first thing is all about data. Data is the new oil, and hyper-personalization is now a must. So at Capgemini, we try to evaluate where are the banks, and we evaluate them into their data management, storing, accessing, sharing, and securing the data, and their data utilization, how are they able to do it, and we move it from low to high. And what did we see? Only 26% of the banks are data expert. And by data expert, meaning that they have the right data management and the right data utilization. 11% are completely in the back seat, where they are behind when it comes to management and come to utilization. And the big chunk of the population is in between. Either they are brilliant manager, but poorly users, or they love to use it, but they don't have the right way to get the right data. So the challenge here is, the problem is to get towards that. And banks' data management, when we ask the bankers about what is the biggest hassle you see, very interesting. More than 75% of the banks believe that manual processes, data duplication, and outdated systems are slowing down the data handling. And more than 70% of them believe that data regulation and lack of policy awareness is making leveraging data more and more difficult. So data is at the heart of the future, and hyper-personalization is what is needed to best engage with the customer. So banks have the best data ever. Unfortunately, they are not using it the right way. So let's project ourselves. It's time to innovate in-house or collaborate, but please innovate. Why are we saying that? Why banks are struggling with in-house innovation? In our survey, we interviewed hundreds of executives of banks, and they told us 73% of them blame insufficient budget allocation, lack of project management, business improvement and prioritization is time consuming, and 43% are pointing that shortage of skilled resources is the problem. And as a consequence, bankers believe that for them to innovate and launch a new concept on their own, it takes 66% of them believe it takes them up to 24 months to innovate. 24 months to innovate, it's not innovation. But when we ask them, why are banks failing to collaborate effectively? They told us it's because of data-related concerns, cybersecurity, compliance, compatibility, leadership, and so on. But on the other side, they told us 60% of the bankers told us that if they were to collaborate successfully, innovation would be much faster, and they will be able to collaborate in less than 12 months. So while time to market is high doing it alone and short doing it together, just do it. Break free, innovate at scale, and collaborate is our key message. So what we want to say here is it's time to embrace OpenX. And to embrace OpenX, we came up with a concept, we called it the OpenX Readiness Index, where we help banks measure their readiness to collaborate at scale. And to make that happen, we evaluate them across the 4 pillars of effective collaboration. People, do you have the right team to collaborate at scale? Business, is the business involved to take this innovation away from just the innovation lab? And we're going to see later on between Financial and BPI France how they made it happen. Technology, does the bank has the right plug and play approach where APIs could come and make it happen? And finally, finance, do we invest in innovation at scale? But we want to evaluate the 4 moments of evaluation: open innovation, meeting the ecosystem; evaluation, selecting the right startups and scale-ups to work with; acculturation, how do you make sure that people work together; and finally, industrialization, how many of the project you launch goes up to scale. And we already interviewed 60 banks around the world. And what can we see? That if we put on collaboration readiness on the x-axis and successfully collaborating on the y-axis, out of the 60, only 3 are in the North Star position. And we evaluate them across Americas, Europe, and APAC. And you could see the large majority of the banks, and these are tier 1 banks around the world, are not yet ready. They are getting there slowly, but not now ready to collaborate at scale. So data and platformifications are the compasses to drive towards the North Star of effective collaboration. So it's important to move into action. Plug and play starts now. What are banks' key business priorities? We engage with the banks and we identified all these priorities on what is keeping them awake at night. And then we ask them, fantastic, how easy is it for you to achieve these business priorities? And we ask them the first question, in your current state. And as you could see, the percentage is quite low. Goes from 28% of easiness to make it happen down to 14%. And then we ask them, if you were to be a platform-based bank, look at the numbers, look at the jump between on your own and with working it with others. The multipliers are amazing. And when we look at unlock new sources of value creation, the acceleration of collaboration and a platform base is amazing. Clearly, the way forward is become a platform-based bank and innovate at scale. The only problem is legacy system and short-sighted are the major challenge that we are seeing. When we talk to the banks, we ask them, what is keeping you, blocking you to platformification? The vision from the management, the systems where we are, the culture of willing to open, willing to share, willing to collaborate, and finally the security. And as you could see, system and security are the main prohibitor to make it happen. But culture is big. And later on, we're going to see again with Financial and BPI France how they handled the culture mix between the two very different cultures between a Scaleup as well as a bank like BPI France. And culture and vision require a change from legacy mindset, while system and security require a modern core, which is essential to build the right platform. So finally, 50% of the executive believe that legacy core banking system results in high IT maintenance cost, increased IT complexity, inefficiency, slow data, and so on. So we have the problem now, but also we understand that what are the benefits from a modern core? Innovation and growth, customer centricity, operational efficiency, risk and compliance. It's all about make it happen towards becoming a transformative core banking platform. So transformation is a long journey, but it's essential to start it. And to pick and choose your battles, you need to strategize. You need to define the transformation. You need to start the integration. You need to find the right partner. And more important, you need to orchestrate this new ecosystem. And all that is the way towards an OpenX ecosystem. So to conclude with the presentation, it's now or unlikely that you could prepare yourself as a bank. Banks are data rich, but not data centric. Anchored with legacy mindset, banks are slow to innovate, and banks need to embrace OpenX. Catalyze the transformation, become lean, become agile, decide between build, buy, and share, but jump. And start focusing on updating your core banking. Step up, scale, and get ready. And what is the way, how have we been able to come to help in that ecosystem? Well, a few months back, Efma, Capgemini, and Finastra came up with the Financial NewTech Challenge 2020. And in all that to foster effective collaboration. And you may think, what's a Financial NewTech? Well, it's a name that we have created to go beyond FinTech, InsurTech, RegTech, and whatever, where a startup or a scale-up providing a B2B solution for financial institution. And we created the Financial NewTech Challenge, where Feminen was selected one of the identified partners to work with. And the Financial NewTech Challenge is the way for us to showcase the opportunities where financial new tech and banks came together and created effective collaboration. I suggest you to go on the fintechvisor.com/NewTech challenge and find out about the conclusions. And as while you are there, look at the FinTech Visor. We want the FinTech Visor to be the place where financial institution and FinTech foster effective collaboration. So in the Financial NewTech 2020, that was in May last year and will be again next year, we evaluated 3 sectors: retail banking, payments, and wealth management. And we evaluated also a category, the effective collaboration between large and small. And based on that, we had more than 100 new tech that submitted 58 effective collaboration across 30 countries, 162 submissions coming from around the world. And we came up with 7 winners, 1 startup, 1 scale up for each business segment, and 1 important winner, bank plus financial new tech effective collaboration. But also out of that, we ended up also identifying the Financial NewTech Watchlist 2020, the 100 financial new techs that we believe will help banks shape the future of banking. We came up with a big chunk of retail banking startup and scale up, other into the payment field, and other into the wealth management. And today, it's really my honor to have Antoine, the CEO of Flaminen, that is with us today and will be talking, because Flaminen was identified as one of the 100 financial new tech that we believe will help banks shape the future of banking. With that, I leave the floor to back to you, Christophe, to take it forward.
Thank you very much, Elias. Great presentation, and we'll have a chance to discuss some of those positions of yours, of course, during the conversation. And now the floor is yours, Antoine. So
well, thank you, Christophe. Thank you, everyone. I'm really thrilled to be with you today. As Elias just mentioned, one of the major issues that banks are facing is, of course, customer experience and user experience. Just to tell you a short anecdote, once we were talking to a major European bank, not BPI France, by the way, a major European bank, they told us they spend up to 67 days on average to onboard an enterprise customer. 67 days on average, that's more than 2 months, with at least 9 interactions on average to collect documents with them and to do all the process of go and fro from fetching the documents, validating them, and requesting for more information, and so on. So what we do in a modest manner, of course, is that we don't solve all the problems that Elias has of course looked into in depth. We try to solve the KYC process that the banks implement in order to onboard customers, and this is really one of the most important process that a bank has to put in priority, because it's really the first process that interacts with a customer as he or she comes in. Yeah, so it's the first interaction with a customer is the onboarding process. So we have here developed a unique solution for enterprise KYC and also KYS, for the supplier's due diligence. But for banks, KYC is more important. So we're our ambition as a company.
I'm sorry, apologies, Antoine. Your screen is a bit cut. It's cutting off. We don't see. Sorry, apologies to interrupt. Yeah, we don't see reference software vendor. We see just it's cut. So I don't know if you want to put it in normal mode, not presentation, or.
I will try. Is this any better?
Apologies to stop your flow. Yeah, that's good. Or maybe do you want to try again to put it in full screen mode just to see if it's working better? My apologies for stopping the flow.
Is this any better?
It's cut on my side. Yeah, Elias and Julian, same. Yeah. So would you mind just putting it in the regular mode, so not presentation?
I do apologize. I don't know where the problem comes from at all. I have
No, it's not you. Yeah, I think if you don't mind, yeah, that's much better because we can see everything again. Apologies for. Yeah, perfect. Yeah, apologies for stopping the flow.
Sorry about that.
Perfect.
I honestly don't know where the problem might come from. So our ambition, is I was saying, is that to become the reference software vendor for enterprise integrity solutions. What this means is all the process that ensures that a customer or a supplier, enterprise, or any third party is not into anti-money laundering, counterfeiting of terrorism, anti-bribery, anti-fraud, and so on. So mainly for banks, we focus a lot on the anti-money laundering and of course the counterfeiting of terrorism. This is a regulation that all banks have to follow. It's now enforced by the fifth and then in the future the sixth European directive. This is a booming market, the AML software market. We're heading towards something like $4 or $5 billion in 5 years. That's a major software market, and we at Feminem, we're trying to take our share of it by offering something that is unique relative to with respect to all what the competition has to offer out there. Is we offer a tool that addresses, of course, the customer pains directly, but more specifically, those customers who deal with enterprise due diligence. Enterprise due diligence has to tackle very complex shareholding graphs, cross party participation. It has to take into account all the stakeholders from various countries and activities of residents and so on. So such tools need also to calculate the UBOs, the beneficiary owners of the company, and so on. So by using a tool like Feminem, a bank will then ensure that it increases its compliance and reduces its compliance costs, avoids penalties, and imposes stricter controls on its processes. And what's so important is that it will reduce the possibility of deteriorating the customer experience due to problems with KYC. Deteriorating customer experience, and probably Elias knows so much about this, it means churn, means bad image, means customers going out to competition, means loss of revenues. It's so much. Just losing customer experience is far too expensive to not to take it seriously. So our tool sits at the heart of the KYC process and orchestrates it. So it digitizes the entire KYC process. It calls upon the users, it helps the users, it calls upon tools, data banks, sanctions databases. It does the screening against sanctions databases like Dow Jones or WorldCheck. It interfaces with third parties who collect and validate the documents. It interfaces with tools that validate, they do identification and identity verification and so on. And it, in parallel, at the same time and in real time, calculates the risk score of the customer. That's extremely important to calculate it in real time, because then we can modify the workflow in real time. We can change the list of documents that we can we request in real time, and so on and so on. Here is what the interface would look like. On the left-hand side, for a legal entity, for an enterprise, that's a shareholding graph. As you can see, this is a simple shareholding graph, and yet it has so many complexities to deal with, because it has sort of circular graphs, it has multiple participations, and so on. And on the right-hand side, you see a simple, an individual person. An individual person can also have relationships. So you might want to carry out the due diligence on a physical person, on an individual, taking into account all the relations that individual has with other people, like whoever, someone who shares with this person similar activities, that trade, that is a privileged customer, and so on.
You have 5 minutes.
Yeah, I won't be long. Just so when we look at a shareholding graph, usually people sort of throw it out in PDF form on the screen. Our shareholding graph is the user experience, is the user interface. This is what the bank experiences. That's what the customer experiences. We see an interactive tool with reds and greens and buttons. We can modify it. We can click on it and obtain the information on the ecosystem. We can change it. We can modify it. We can add the new companies and new structures to it, and so on. So that's really important. And what we've developed in order to enforce this shareholding graph user experience, we have developed tools that can read automatically from the company's legal documents using deep learning tools. We can read in from company's legal documents all the information about the shareholding structure and transform it automatically into a shareholding graph in our tool. So this will alleviate all the burden of translating cap tables into shareholding graphs. We can read any cap table from any format, with any structure, from any tool, to a shareholding graph in seconds. So that's what we do. So it's as Elias mentioned, it's innovative user experience is really the name of the game. Here's what we do. We try to be the best in terms of user experience for the KYC process, and specifically for the KYC process that is so complex, which is that when it deals with enterprise customers, so banks, corporate banks, wealth management, private equities, investment banks, all have to deal with enterprise customers, and there are no tools out there that automate this process. All we can do is help out by digitizing it and making it more fluid and streamline the process to the maximum, so that the customer at the end of the day is happy and not frustrated. Just to finish off, it's as Elias mentioned, we're a scale-up, so that the solution is not only a prototype. It is industrial strength solution. Julien and after me will tell you how they've used it at BPI France to support 2,000 daily users with tens of thousands of due diligences every year. So we have BPI France as a customer, and we have many other customers from the private equity. And we're also so proud to be a scale-up qualified by Capgemini and also to have been the winner of the retail and commercial banking scale-up at the EFMA international competition back in March. Thank you very much, and I'm sorry for this. This screen issue.
It's alive. I mean, it should happen. Actually, that's good. Thank you very much, and congratulations for the nominations. Applause for you, Antoine. Thank you. So now, last but not least, I'm gonna now pass the mic to Julien. So from BPI France, Julien.
Yes.
Whenever you're ready, the floor is yours.
Yes, I'm ready. Thank you, Christophe. And hello, everyone. I'm Julien Bellassène. I've been working at BPI France for 5 years now, and I started as a compliance officer before becoming a digital compliance officer. And in a few words, I'm in charge of the digitalization of the compliance business line at BPI France. And to do that, I work a lot with RegTech like Flaminem. So let's start with a quick presentation of BPI France before talking about the partnership with Flaminem. As Christophe said, BPI France is a French public investment bank, and our mission is to finance French companies, French enterprise at every stage of their development with loans, guarantees, or equity intervention. And we have all sizes of enterprise as a customer, to a small enterprise, to larger company, but we have no individual customer. And to finish for the presentation of BPI France, we have a public shareholding. So we have the French state as a shareholder, but we are subject to the same regulation as the other banks. So we have to face with regulatory pressure, and this is why we decided a few years ago to use RegTech to help us to comply with all these regulations, and more precisely with AML CFT regulations. So let's now get to the subject of the today's presentation, and let's talk about the project we realize with Flaminem. So all started when we wanted to digitize the AML CFT process. So we identified 3 issues surrounding our AML CFT process. The first one was, of course, to ensure that BPI France is permanently in compliance with AML CFT regulation. And more specifically, we needed to ensure that our front office, middle office, realize correctly AML due diligence on their clients. So, for example, the correct identification of beneficial owners, the correct recovery or KYC document, etc., etc. The second challenge consisted to reduce as much as possible the time spent by our front office on KYC due diligence, and then reduce as well the cost for BPI France. And this can be done only by automating tasks with low added value, like the registration of data on our database, the upload of KYC document, and so on. And finally, the third challenge was to improve the customer KYC journey by avoiding asking for the same information or the same document several times, like the identity card, the table of capitalization, etc. So to address these challenges, we started a review of the problems faced by our operational staff. And so we organized a workshop with front and middle office. And the purpose of these meetings was to identify with them the problems they had during the AML process. And they told us about many difficulties, such as, for example, the manual analysis to identify ultimate beneficial owners, the fact that AML tools they used wasn't ergonomic and wasn't user-friendly. You can see on the screen on the middle. And we had a decentralized document collection that was really complex for the operational staff. And so with this workshop, we knew that the conclusion about all of that was clear. It was necessary to change our AML tool. So we decided in 2017 to work with the RegTech Flaminem rather than working on in-house development with our IT department, because we knew that the time to market would be too long and for an uncertain result in terms of quality. And Flaminem on 2017 was a young startup. And to mitigate this risk, the risk of working with them, we decided to start with a proof of concept. So to test, in order to test their capacity to meet our requirements, but also to test their capacity to develop and deliver quickly. So as you can see on the screen, on the slide, the proof of concept was focused on a new way to view our clients' shareholding in the form of a graph. And this was very, very important because until this time, the front office were doing this graph thing on paper in order to be sure that they can identify correctly the beneficial owner. So it was the subject of the proof of concept, and yes, I didn't pass the next slide. So you see on the right side the paper what the front office did on their table, and the proof of concept, the conclusion of the proof of concept 3 months later with Flaminem was a success. But it was only the beginning of the project, because the hardest part was to convince our IT team to trust RegTech rather than developing an in-house solution like we did before. So the next step was to convince our IT team, but to do that we had problems, because we had two opposing points of view between the compliance team and the IT team. The IT team, I say here the internal vision, so for the legacy, the IT team had a negative view of Flaminem project, because for them it was complex. It was complex because it required to integrate a SaaS solution, and in 2017 we never did that. It was for them expensive, because there is always a cost of changing of tool, and they didn't know the capacity of Flaminem to meet deadlines, and more simply, they had low confidence in a RegTech, in a SaaS solution. So what now we can understand, because it was new for them at this time. And on the other hand, from the business vision, the compliance vision, we had a really positive view of Flaminem, because we saw the capacity of Flaminem to deliver quickly and the compliant requirements, the compliant features that we asked. We were confident in the team solution, because thanks to the proof of concept that we did, and we understood how much this solution would improve the user experience. And in order to conciliate these 2 points of view, we decided to set up a pilot phase. So it's a test with a real user and real KYC due diligence. And this was a really interesting thing, because it lasted 4 months, and it was a real success with our front and middle office user, because Flaminem, we saw that Flaminem succeeded to manage to take into account more than 30 features reported by users during the period. We had more than 100 front and middle office users involved and satisfied, and they confirmed us that they preferred this new tool, which was more ergonomic and more user-friendly. So it gave us the confidence that we can deploy the solution nationally, and that's what we did.
Hey, Julien,
and I will finish. Yes,
it's great story. So you've got ideally 2 minutes.
Yeah, 2 minutes. It's the last slide.
Thank you.
And just to conclude, sorry. That's what we did in 2019. We have deployed the solution to 2,000 users in a few months, and now we are in 2020 at the end of the year, and our challenges now is to integrate the solution further into our IT system with our legacy in order to automate more the KYC process as much as possible with the use of APIs. So that's it, Christophe. Sorry if I'm being too...
No, it's perfect. My apologies for interrupting on the last slide. It's perfect. Yeah. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you. It's a fascinating story. We've got a limited amount of time, 15 minutes. Let's make it count, okay? The first question I have is for Julien, because you're like all warmed up now. You mentioned the co-creation or co-construction, as you say, process. I love that term. And you mentioned that you faced resistance from IT, for lack of better words. How difficult was it internally to champion open innovation? So when the necessity to work with FinTech or RegTech the size of Flaminem, especially from the senior management, was it a given? Like you understood the value of doing so it didn't require too much convincing at the highest level?
Yes, we had to have the support of the top management, because fortunately we had a strong support from the beginning of the head of compliance. For the head of compliance of BPI France, who immediately saw the value of the solution during the test phase. And I think without this high-level support, it would have been very difficult to overcome the IT's resistance we had at the time. So I think it's really, really important if you want to go forward to obtain a sponsorship of the top management. And it's really important if you want that an innovative project to be a success.
So the importance of the commitment and support for management, the importance to go step by step, starting with the POC
Yes.
and then scaling up, that makes a lot of sense, obviously. Antoine, can you share a bit of your experience? Like you had to scale up pretty dramatically in terms of matching the level you are right now. So over what, 3 years? First of all, 3 years, will it be possible to shorten that cycle, or you reckon you had to go through all those processes? Is there a way in the future where banks are, able to speed up the integration of a third-party solution like yourself? Sorry, I'm muted. That's okay. You're unmuted.
From end to end, but I think it's more of a 1 year acceleration phase. So at the beginning, it was more of a preparatory phase, sort of a lot of convincing within BPI France. And then since we deployed last year, so we've been at 1 year from with deployment to 2,000 people. So it's 1 year, which was last year, really, 2019, which was, we lived a kind of an earthquake shattering experience. I mean, with the entire company was shaking all the time because we had to learn to work with a major bank, to deploy to a major customer, to set up so many processes like all the SLA processes, all the security processes, all the GDPR processes, all these processes that a startup doesn't start with usually from the beginning. Yeah. So there we put all this into place whilst developing the software and setting up the delivery processes also to the customer. So that was quite a major challenge.
It was, yeah. But again, your story of BPI France stepping up and helping you co-create that solution, I think is a great story, of course.
That's a great story because that's the best way you can create a tool that answers customer experience. I mean, we bring the technology, they bring their customer experience pains, in a sense, and we try to solve them together.
And Julien, you recognize from the get-go that going from a built in-house actually solution would take too long and wouldn't necessarily make sense in terms of maintaining it, making sure you could help driving the evolution of the solution over the years. So I think it demonstrates the commitment to be more open as an organization. So that's great. Elias, as part of the report, and of course it's a fact that more and more organizations are providing like incredible customer experience as a platform. How do you think and how can Platformification help banks achieve their business priorities?
Look, I'd love to start by reacting to what Antoine and Julien said. Both of them had to scale their game. BPI had to scale the management, the willingness to make it happen. And Antoine had to scale his business practice, a crazy year for them to make it happen. And for me, one of the enabler of all that for me are two: culture and IT. Culture, we have seen it. Julien saying we had to convince, and then we had to get the endorsement. First, convincing the senior management to jump into it, and then the senior management saying, "This is it, guys, all work." And let's be realistic. We all fear for our job, and we all fear for the other one on the other side. And getting a startup could impact my business, could get my job off, but also could impact my systems. So it's a human factor to be cautious about it. But then on the other side, if you look at the startup, it's always we run fast. Between the moment Antoine make a decision and its execution, it's only he needs just to turn around. He doesn't need to walk, even though, because they are all together. And signing an NDA only takes the minute to sign it. Probably signing an NDA with BPI France took X months. It's normal. I mean, so this is for the human side. On the platform side, once we all get together and said, okay, we shook hand, let's run. I'm sure Antoine came with the plug saying, where do I plug it? And where do I plug it? Well, my plug is 2. And we don't have a plug. And then they came up with a plug, and the plug was a plug of 3. And then you need to find it. And this is where IT comes to play. And to answer the question, platform is a mental platform and a technical platform. The mental one is by us setting up a platform, we are willing to collaborate at scale. And then by developing the platform, this is for the culture side. And when we develop the platform, we need to make it with all kind of plug, American plug, UK plug, French plug, Asian plug, all that being API, basically, that they could connect and they could talk to each other. And the end game is a go-to-market much faster than what a bank like BPI could have come up on their own. And that's the value of it.
Yes, that's correct. Thank you very much for that. And if we step back, I think you mentioned on one of your documents, Antoine, that when you first met with BPI France was almost like a coincidence. I mean, the first contact. Can you talk about how hard or easy is it now for you to go to market as a brand like Flaminem, so in the RegTech space, which is very busy those days?
Yeah, well, the way it all started is related to what the kind of business we were in at the beginning. I mean, we used to develop tools for the military intelligence. So we were very good at developing graphs, manipulating graphs, and relating data and connecting data and so on. And it really is with Julien's intuition that he said to us, well, I'm looking for a tool that does all this, but for the shareholding graphs and the relationships between enterprises and all the shareholders and stakeholders of an enterprise. So we said, okay, let's go for it, and then that's how it all started. You see, getting it's a good software product. It looks very easy in a sense. It's like an airplane. I mean, it's very easy to go and find your seat in an airplane. It's so easy. But building an airplane is a different story. A cathedral, it's the same thing. I mean, it's so easy to go inside the cathedral and walk around, but building a cathedral is another story. And our tool looks so easy. You probably saw it from the slides. It looks so easy, but it's thousands and thousands and thousands of little small features that Julien, his team, and our team have looked into and gone through and tested and developed and reworked and so on. So that's this is what makes the whole story interesting at the end.
It is. And it's not just about creating or building a cathedral, it's restoring one as well, right? Especially in Paris at the moment. Julien, so that beautiful, like successful story, did that resonate within the organization? Which means that on the back of it, that drove even more open innovation on other sides and areas of the business?
Yes, because at the same time that we deployed Flaminem, we started an open innovation initiative at BPI France, and clearly it helped us to move away from everything has to be developed in-house, and with that we started to raise the awareness of the business team and IT team about FinTech and what they could bring to BPI France to use this innovative solution. We implement like Elias said, the approach based on test and learn, so the proof of concept, in order to test the different solutions easily and quickly. And last but not least, we also we learned about the experience with Flaminem, which was complicated about the contractualization, the step to the industrialization. So we implement a process of industrialization of innovative solution, for which tests have been successful.
And on the compliance side and onboarding of new partners, is it easier now as well than it was like 2 years ago to onboard a new FinTech?
Yes, it's a little bit easier, but it's always it's always hard. It's always the hard part, and maybe sometimes it takes more time to do the legal and compliance things than to implement the solution itself. To be honest, and even now it's really complicated. But it's the same for every startup, so we have to pass through.
By experience, it's always a point of contention indeed, for smaller organizations trying to partner with the bigger the bank as well, the more complicated usually. If I go back to Elias, you talked about the necessity, of course, to become a platform, to do a better job with data, to change the culture, and that applies arguably to any kind of financial institution on the face of earth. But would you say that it also applies to smaller institutions or in specific markets like the likes of the community markets, which have different level of maturity of innovation in terms of needs? Would you apply the very same model, or do you have like an adapted model for, again, those types of financial institutions?
I would say if I were to compare tier 1 and tier 2 banks, or also market size, clearly when you are a large bank, a tier 1 bank, you could do it alone, and you have enough people that could spend the time to do it. So I'm seeing the difficulty of doing now. COVID has shown that even tier 1 bank struggled to be up to speed very quickly. But if you're a tier 2 banks, there is no way you can do it alone. It's expensive, it's lengthy, you don't have enough talents on board, and you don't have the luxury of doing it. The loyalty of your customers is very relative. They don't have brand awareness. They have sentimental relationship with you because you've been around forever. But let's face it, sentiments goes away as business comes to play or as need comes to play. So if you're a small market, if you are a tier 2 bank, evolve toward platforms is a must. Join platforms. There are already several open platforms, several Scaleups that created their own platform, or several, like Finastra, several IT providers that came and said, guys, let us play the role of finding all the Flaminem of the world, evaluate them and plug them. And once they are plugged, come and tell us what is your business need. We will find you A.com, B.com, and C.com, and we will give you the solutions. It's probably the only way for these players to go ahead.
Exactly. And we see at least two sides. One is, as you said, the large banks, which would like to drive open innovation. But usually even the most advanced one, they focus on one side of the business, like retail, for instance. And it's not that easy to go transversal. Or as you said, the smaller institution, and it's kind of plug and play, and it removes the friction on so many levels. And for the fintech, it's easier as well to work with an established platform provider. So I think it was a great conversation. We almost at the 1 hour mark. Anything you would like to add, Antoine?
Oh, you picked me up. Well, yeah, I first of all, of course, thanks everybody for listening and you. But it's extremely important if there are any banks listening to us. Banks, all those whom we meet today, think of the KYC, the AML processes as a regulatory must-have cost process. And if they can reduce the cost, it would be okay. They always forget that it's also about business and customer experience. So every single process that touches customers, that helps the onboarding, the customer experience is an important one. And they need to take into account the business value that digitizing this process can bring.
Yeah, that's correct. And there's so many compelling events to do so. That's one of the reasons why I'm fascinated with the RegTech space. Julien, anything else you'd like to add? You're on mute, so I'm going to unmute you.
Sorry.
No,
I just can agree with what Antoine says. We have to, us bank, tier 1 or tier 2, we must be open to all this innovative solution. I think it's the future, and I only can say that to all the other banks maybe that are listening.
Thank you, yeah. And Elias?
Well, my conclusion, I would say it's more than time to move from the open innovation to the applied innovation.
And you would
open
say that
is we get together, we talk, we do blah, 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 we do POC. Applied innovation, we do industrialization at scale. And what we have seen today with Financial and BPI in France is a true example of innovation at scale, where the end user benefits from the results.
Exactly. And you would say that. And you're right, it's extremely important. We've talked about innovation for years, like 10, 15 years. And now it's time to be more agile and build stuff at scale indeed. Before I wrap up, so KYC, I used to work in anti-money laundering like a gazillion years ago. So again, that's why it resonates with me. You could see that Julien, digital compliance officer, it's all about secrecy. And so he's kind of in a dark environment. That makes a lot of sense. And yes, no. But thank you very much all for contributing. I think it was a great conversation, and it's just a start. Please, everybody, feel free to connect to the panelists or myself directly on social, for instance. Please go and check the website. So Flaminen's, of course, BPI France and Capgemini, and in particular, so the World Retail Banking Report 2020. FinTech Visor between Capgemini and the Efma, and of course our hackathon, so at fintech.devpost.com. Please help us to redefine finance for good. You've got until the 20th of December. And again, thank you very much, everybody, and see you soon.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.